Okay. Hello, everybody. We are live. Let's wave at the people. Hi, everybody. This is the first inaugural. Is that the right word for something that's okay? Yeah. Welcome to Mom's Open Table, everybody, where we are bringing together GMs, players, creators to share their stories, insights, hot takes from the TTRPG world. I'm Maia, and today we have GM Syd here with us. And before we dive in, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more? Tell us, quick intro and all that good stuff, who you are, what you do in the TTRPG space, what you do outside of it, hobbies, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, my name is Syd. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a forever GM, a pro GM. I am a TTRPG writer, a supplement writer, an all-around consumer of TTRPG media. Got a thick library full of stuff. Just bought more stuff yesterday. Outside of that, I am a pet owner. I read. I don't know. I build little miniature models, and I daydream about more TTRPG stuff because I love it.
This is our... oh my God.
No, I got you. You're good. Oh, now you're not good.
I got a new mic.
That's all right.
I got a new mic, and it's awesome, but I keep hitting the mute button. So sorry about that. But yeah, this is Mom's Open Table. We're trying out a new interview style thing. Let's give it a shot. Why not? We love TTRPGs. We love talking about it. We do that before we start our games and after we start our games. And let's just do it in a more formal sense. What we're gonna do is go through different segments and talk about your journey, any house rules you may have, advice, and then we'll finish it off. But we're going to transition to the first segment. I'm going to call it Who Raised You? So this is a segment. This is a segment where you talk about your TTRPG journey. Who or what influenced your play style the most? So let's start there. Talk about where it all started up until this point now. Yeah. So how did you get here? How did you get introduced to all this?
Oh goodness. Twofold. I have been creative writing for a very long time. Those people who, the pro boards, the 4Emotions, the online writing role play, I've been doing that for a long time. So creating stories, being around stories, already really enjoyed. And then I have family who play D&D. I was actually sort of the last late convert of my siblings to start. And I had friends who played, and I was always hesitant because I really like the writing and the story part. I don't want the rest. I don't want the probability. I want that control, right? And as soon as I actually tried it, which my first game was the Avatar Legends system.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was an interesting take, but it was also, it's rooted in a piece of media that I have great respect for and was really eager to explore and experience. The improv part really hooked me. So even though that's not a system I engage with a lot now, I was already all right, I actually do like this. You've convinced me. And I sought out 5e experiences and found out what my friends were doing and tried to get as plugged in as possible. And it's been a fun downhill ski ever since, just full sending more and more into all of the nooks and crannies.
It's funny that you say downhill ski. I was like, oh, is it going bad? What's wrong?
No, just because it's going faster and
gotcha.
Be hard. Downhill is easy. You're just going forward,
Okay, I gotcha. So it's snowballing into more and more stuff.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Is there anyone that has influenced your play style? Right now you said you're a forever GM, but you started off as a player, right? What was that transition like that you're okay, so I like this GMing part more than being a player?
It was pretty soon after I started playing that I wanted to GM, and I think initially that was because our group had just finished and our GM was I'm taking a break, and I didn't want to not play. I'm well, other people can it can't be that hard. Let me go find like the beginner, the easiest. I watched a ton of videos.
Yeah.
I obviously bit off more than I could chew, which is a rite of passage for every beginner GM.
Same.
Everyone does it. And then I roped my most like trusted friends, sisters, my partner, people I'd played with before, and begged them, like, I found this one thing. Would you commit, 3 sessions for me to try this out and see how it goes? And if we all don't like it, then no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
But I had been consuming a lot of media too. So things like Fantasy High, which I watched really early on into my like delve into TTRPG land. The Exandria Unlimited, getting to watch Abria Iyengar DM, especially before I started. So those sorts of things, watching really good people do it, and then also having the sort of audacity to be like, I can do it too. Sure, it can't be that hard. My friends do it. And
I think it'd be great if more people. Yeah, I think it'd be great if more people had that attitude, because some people are very like hesitant. They're like, I'm not ready, just not yet, just yet. And you're just like, hey, because you hear that advice a lot. It's like, you just have to do it. Like the best way to start is just to start.
Exactly. And if you can accept that it might not be this pedestal that you've seen other, professionals do it as, and you're open to the learning. Like it's not going to go the way I envision it, but I think we'll still have fun. Like that's your open gate to sort of get past the, I'm not ready, I don't know enough control aspect of it.
Yeah. And I mean, so your first few sessions, you were like, okay, this can't be that hard, and I want to try it. Do you remember that feeling of that first session? Did you get hot flashes? Was your heart palpitating?
I pitted out my shirt for sure. I know I was sweating the entire time. Because of course I picked, like, it wasn't a one shot. It was 3 sessions. R&W Publishing, they have a really cute, all of my players were spellcasters. So I had to learn a lot of spellcasting stuff real quick because I hadn't been playing a spellcaster. But it was something we were all excited about because they all played cats, which was also very fun. So something we were pumped about. But yeah, I was nervous. And still to this day, like when I start a new system, I get a little bit of that nerves. And even though I've played many systems now, the initial is like, all right, I don't know how this will go, but it's still going to be fun. But sometimes your body reacts differently than how you mentally know what will happen.
Exactly. And so do you still get that same amount of nervous, or you're just like,
oh no,
it's just like, I got this
just
at this
point. A little
point.
bit now. Yeah.
Do you think it's a little bit helpful to have those nerves? Do you ever think it's like, if you don't have them, then maybe you think you're the best thing ever? What do you think?
I think nerves they're a very natural thing that happens for a person. And I think they exist to help sharpen your, the information you're taking in and how you react and your brain function. And so they serve a very real purpose. I don't think necessarily the absence of nerves is also bad. Like if you're very comfortable with the system, like I am with Brindlewood Bay, like great. Then I know my capabilities. And when I have nerves, I can still know my capabilities. I just have to be a little bit more internally vocal. This is going to go well. We're going to have fun. I know these players, or whatever I need to say to myself. But I don't think they're a bad thing to have because I think it shows you care. You care a lot about the experience.
Right.
For sure.
Feel something rather than nothing at all.
Yeah.
And so do you remember your first character or how you like kind of first GM'd versus how you GM now?
Oh, that's a better question.
Is there anything that you're like, okay, I shouldn't have done that, I don't do it now? Something that you kind of learned?
Yes. In prep, I write way less stuff now than I ever wrote before. At the beginning, I think there's this onus that I started out with that I think a lot of beginner GMs start out with of I am the architect of the experience. So I need to plan and be ready for any experience my players bring. And that's just not true. You're not
right. Yeah,
you are supporting your players, and you're co-telling a story. You can't prep for everything. So growing, I now have a much larger improv skill set than I ever had when I was beginning, and that allows me to not control a narrative and sort of sit back and write way less and know that, all right, here, I know I can support my players and how they're directing the story, which is going to be probably way more exciting and engaging for them than me trying to direct this story with control, right? So I write way less. I have things that I bring in that I'm like, it'd be cool to hit on these touch points or these story beats that I can introduce, but largely try to restrain myself because I know that the brain can get going for sure.
Do you think it's like, is it because you're a writer? Because you mentioned that you like to write and that's how you got like.
Yeah, I think it's with that pathway because I came from total control or like 50-50 where you're writing with a partner and you're each taking turns telling the story.
Right. Yeah.
And there's no dice arbitration. There's no, and it's very encapsulated. It's just like two characters, right? So coming to a group where there's a party and you've got dice arbitrating and you've got the narrative, whether it's a module where it's kind of already established or a setting where you know where you are, or homebrew and you're making everything up and need to have that higher level of prep. I think it stems from that for sure. And just having come from needing to be the arbiter to not needing to be the arbiter anymore.
Yeah. Do you think that's like a being a railroader, laying all these rails, like here, this is the story that I'm building out and I want to hit these versus like, hey, this is like emergent storytelling now. It's, play to find out type stuff.
Yeah, a bit. I also think it's, when you're co-storytelling, it's really exciting to get to explore and explain, oh, here's how I picture it. And very early on in my DM journey, I would sort of step over that line of like, yeah, you rolled it and this is what happens versus now I do a lot of, you tell me what that looks like. What do you think this looks like? You tell me what that looks like, and then I'm going to add your complication at the end, right? Like I want my players to be the narrator way more now than I did at the beginning, and I think it's because of that. So yeah, I love emergent story, play to find out. Obviously, I play a lot of games that have no canonical ending, so we have to play to find out. Like there's no established ending, and that's very exciting. For sure. So I think, just we're a writer's room, myself and my players, we're all telling the story. And I'm always trying to think of more ways to hand over the reins because they're going to be more engaged. They're going to have more fun.
Yeah.
They get more autonomy and that's more fun for all of us. And it's a better story.
Yeah. And it's like, isn't it like a mental weight off of your mind too, a little bit? So because as a GM, we're thinking about so much. And to kind of like, hey, I pass the baton off to you and I don't have to, my brain doesn't have to be at 110% right now. I can kind of like sit back and see what you guys do.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a different way of GMing. And I think you're right. Yeah. Like it's less onus on one person to be the architect. So if we're all sharing that and we all have a little bit more autonomy in the story, then I as a GM now don't need to think through, well, what if they do this? Well, what if they do this? Well, what if they do this? How am I going to improv my way through that? I can really sit back and be like, that was I would have never thought of what you just said. That's awesome. And celebrate it because it is awesome to have that sort of storytelling experience with one another.
Yeah. Like I do 10d6.
Ooh. You cut out just a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
There you go. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but when a player just suggests something wild and you're like, my brain did not go there, would not go there, but let's roll with it.
Yeah, let's find out what happens exactly.
Yeah. Have you ever got any people or comments where they're like, because there's some people who are very like rules as written first or very mechanical, and they'll be like, well, I would have never done that, or the rules technically say this, and you're like, well, it was fun in the moment. Ever had those moments where you're like, I'm gonna go with like rule of cool rather than rules as written?
Yeah, I think maybe just by a nature of I run a lot of games that have very restricted or minimal rule sets. So rules as written are already kind of pretty expansive and open for interpretation.
Yeah.
But yeah, in running 5e, I'm not an expert in 5e. All of my players know this. If they're watching, they're like, yeah, sending Google stuff. I'm looking up stuff all the time so I can understand it and then make a ruling. And they all know, like, if I rule something and then they disagree with it, they're free to message me about it and we'll talk. And if that needs to change something in the narrative later on, absolutely. But I am typically of the mind of like, that was a stellar idea. Let me figure out how we can make this work in the mechanics, because typically when they come up with something like that, I want it to happen too. Like, yes, I want my player to turn into a giant war ostrich and like kick an enemy across the screen. That's awesome. Yeah. Let's figure out how to make it work. But I don't typically get the, well, I wouldn't have done it this way. Because at the end of the day, if you want to do it that way, like become the GM. Run the game.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
You know, but
that's the nice way of saying it.
But yeah, I run a lot of rules expansive games where everything is kind of more nebulous, so not too many experiences with that.
Right. So more narrative heavy. So it's like whatever makes sense in the narrative. Okay. Do you have any mentors or inspirations that you still stick to you to this day, and you're like, this very much shapes who I am as a GM? Like, this person very much inspires me, or this piece of media. So is there anything like that really?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of spoke to some of those early formative experiences, like watching Fantasy High as someone who was new to the hobby was really, really cool to see how the story was told. And I'm a big fan of coming of age narratives across all media, movies, books, you name it. I love consuming that. And so I look for that in games naturally. Abria just being chef's kiss, amazing at telling immersive stories and stories where you care for incredibly flawed characters. And I try to bring that in with NPCs all the time. The way that, they're all real in the world. So let's make them real. Let's give them conflicting biases. Let's give them their own reasons for doing something outside of, because the module needs this person to do this thing at this time.
Right.
But some more recent ones, Cameron Strittmatter from the Panic Table. He runs a Mothership actual play. And out some more really cool media soon. And he's also a writer, and I think they've got a production studio. And Cameron is a storyteller that can make you care about anything and also make your stomach hurt about anything. I do horror in a lot of my games. I really appreciate seeing the way that he can bring in something that is like deceptively uncomfortable or
uncanny.
To sort of turn something on its head of like, here's this really fun moment and boom, now we're into something horrific or something really dangerous. So I really enjoyed watching Unaccompanied Minors. You guys should all go check it out. It's wonderful.
Where is it at? Spotify?
It's on YouTube. The
YouTube?
Panic Table is the channel. Unaccompanied Minors, MINORS. It's really wonderful. And those players were all new to the game too. So it was just fantastic. I rewatch it. That's how much I enjoyed the experience of learning from Cameron. And then Jason Cordova, the publisher, the writer of Brindlewood Bay, he does a lot of play testing, actual play. And he hosts a couple of podcasts where they really go behind the scenes on this is why X, Y, and Z thing occurs, or what our thoughts were. And I'm always a better GM the sessions I run after I listen to commentary from Jason on his own games or other games. I think he's got a really bright mind for game mechanics and narrative play. Obviously, all of his games are these narrative, really wonderful explorations of sort of the human psyche. And so I turn to those often. And then, of course, movies, music that I really enjoy. But those are sort of the GMs and the writers and the game players that I find myself trying to take in lessons from and bring them to my table for my players.
I think, I forgot to mention, like, this format is, because we're both GMs here on this channel. Yeah. And so this is a new thing. What the idea is that this is going to be like a round table thing. So you interview someone, Andrew, Gene or a beginner, any of those GMs, I think, listen, we should try to reach out to Jason Cordova and like make something
Get him
happen.
on here. Come on, Jason.
Come on, help out the little guy,
Big
Jason.
Fans. Big fans.
That would be so cool. But yeah, so you're so how long has your GM journey been? Like how many years is this?
Oh gosh, probably four and a half now. Yeah.
Do you still think like you're very much still like learning things?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I hope that I feel that way forever. I don't.
Same. Yes.
I always want to be learning. There's always new stuff coming out. There's new people on the scene. There's new media, new commentary. So I always want to be learning. That's part of the journey of it. I really enjoy. I hope I never feel like I've learned it all.
Yes. Yes. I've met people that were like, I've been playing since '86, and I'm like, oh, great. I don't. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think, is there anything that you feel that you want to be better at? Have you like, oh, I still want to like work on this, or I want to learn more about this? You know?
Oh, all the time. I think as a GM that's neurodivergent, having ADHD, having autism, I think I always want to be better at receiving cues from my players. Okay. If they're gearing up towards a specific role, but I'm not clocking it, and then I miss the chance to be like, oh, this sounds like a meddling move or whatnot, and sort of giving them the opportunity there in the role play to then use the mechanic. And I noticed that when I'm editing all the time, like, oh, okay.
Yes, there it was. You caught it after.
Yes, hindsight 2020, right? So I'm always looking to improve that sort of in the moment, taking that in and being able to process it in real time. And I think that largely is because of the way my brain operates. But
right.
Outside of that, I want to always be improving on helping players have a good time, especially when they're new. I teach a lot of games, and there's always there's hesitancy, doing a new thing for the first time, that, you're going to start putting out your shirt. You're nervous, right? That's a thing that exists. So exactly. I always want to be improving on making that easier for players when they're trying a new game. They're already going out on a limb. And giving them a really fun, good experience where they feel like, I learned that game. I had fun doing it, and wanting them to come back, because there's so much out there. There's so many wonderful games that
so much
there's a lot plethora. I'm constantly like, where's all my money gone? It's because I'm buying all those games, right?
We need to see a picture of her cabinets, you guys, or her bookshelf.
I'm sure there are people with bigger ones for sure, but I'll get those out there.
Okay. So another part of your GM journey is eventually you decided to join up with all of us to like create this YouTube channel. Like what made you want to do that? Was that on your mind like beforehand? You're like, oh, I've always wanted to try it? Or
no, like it wasn't on my mind.
Okay. How did that
start? I had the really wonderful experience of being a player for one of our fellow GMs, Andrew, in a live streamed actual play, like Playtest of Undying Corruption, which is a Korean mythology based module that I had backed. And so I saw that he had, recruited for it, and I got in, and I really enjoyed that experience. And because of that connection with Andrew, that sort of gave me the connection to the rest of you. So when it was put out there, and I was already starting to write stuff at this point, I was like, well, why not? It's sort of the same thing. Like, other people do it, I can try.
Sure.
Right? At the end of the day, like, if it's not good and I don't enjoy it, then be done with it, Exactly. But if I want to try it, this is a great opportunity, a way for me to do it in a place, again, with people who are safe, with people who want the same thing.
Right.
And to share tips, so it's not so overwhelming when you're starting a new thing. So it sort of just became an option because of the good experiences I had before, and having the time and wanting to learn to know how to do it.
Yeah. And it feels good to not do it by yourself, right?
Yes. Especially starting out. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we would recommend. Get a group of people together and just try it out. We would say, why not is the question of this interview. So is there anything that in terms of like doing this that you found that you just really like? Because I mean, you've obviously liked it. You've chosen to stay here. What do you like about just like doing these actual plays and just posting them online?
For sure. Well, first, I really love playing with the group that I have. Like, they're a riot.
Yeah.
We have so much fun. They're very close friends. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, having that opportunity, regardless of whether or not we're recording, is so special to me. But then, yeah, getting to tell a story and to bring in, we've ran a lot of third party mysteries.
Right.
So running stuff from the community that isn't published in the actual physical, text of the book, and getting to celebrate that and share with those writers, like, hey, we ran your thing. This is the crazy stuff that happened during it because of these players, and sort of celebrating kind of what we all work towards, which is having a good time at the table and telling a story together. And developing that story, week to week throughout. We've been at the Brindlewood Bay one for over a year, and
yes,
so I enjoy getting to connect with the community more. I know so many more writers, which is good for me as a writer. This is sort of spurred. We're running a mystery that I wrote for these players for this campaign right now, and so I feel like I get more opportunities as well. It's really been sort of benefits all around to making an actual play and learning and getting to connect with the community, and then just show how awesome my players are to other people.
Yeah, just show them off.
They're stellar storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
And so for them to be appreciated for their craft and what they do, I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yes. I've been doing research. I'm like, okay, so what makes an actual play entertaining to watch? One of them is like the chemistry between the players. Like, people like to see that. And I think your group definitely does have that. And it looks like you guys are like
genuine friends.
Yeah, you guys are genuinely having fun. And that is nice to see. So let's talk about Brindlewood Bay. This campaign, look, because this is no small feat. You guys have been doing this for over a year. Like, because the average, I think the average campaign is like 10 sessions or something, like something very small.
It's usually like 10 to 15. If you're really sort of by the book about it. Obviously we all love to talk, so we've gone a little bit past.
Yeah, because I was like, I saw the thumbnail for the finale, and I'm like, and then there was like 6 more episodes after. I'm like, they're just having a good time now.
Yeah, well, as one of the mechanics with emergent play, if they have a bad roll in the theorize, like, they've got to go back and hit the mystery beat more. And so we have one mystery that was 6 episodes long.
Yeah.
Because in the middle, they failed it, and then they had to continue on getting more details and more clues and reformat. Sort of a twist and turn for sure. But we also do... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, let's start from the top. What is Brindlewood Bay? And talk about the entire experience of just, pulling this out longer than you guys expected and all that.
Sure. Brindlewood Bay is a powered by the apocalypse-esque TTRPG. It's got its own system actually carved from Brindlewood that other games are made under now. But it is cozy and it is cosmic horror. So thinking about Murder, She Wrote meets Cthulhu, or the Golden Girls plus Scooby-Doo plus like Twin Peaks, right? It's this exploration of age. You're playing elderly women, retirees, widows, who are uncovering a massive conspiracy in their sleepy little town, episode by episode. So every mystery is sort of this encapsulated, someone has died, it's a murder mystery, but over the course of a campaign, you learn that there is, a cult or this force behind everything that is orchestrating everything to meet their nefarious end. And at the end of a campaign, the Mavens, our characters, have to confront that head on because their lives are at stake. So it starts very sleepy and like, so-and-so died in kind of an odd way, to like, we are full on in a supernatural battle, good versus evil for the reality of which we all share. And it progresses you from one point to another, which is so fun.
I love the concept because it's so fun, of like, just because you don't really see like people play like older women, like 60 and up. But I think that makes it fun and like a little bit silly too, like a little quirky. And then this cosmic horror. So that is crazy. Okay. But it looks like you guys are having a lot of fun. I think a year plus is it's a good thing to hit. So like, how do you feel about all that, starting from the beginning to now?
Sure. At the beginning, of course, we were all very nervous. It was my second campaign. I'd already ran one to sort of get the training wheels of the system.
Yeah.
But for my players, none of them had played a campaign of this before. One of them hadn't played Brindlewood Bay before.
Yeah.
And the other two had just played like a mystery here or there that I ran previously. So as a group, all of my players were still pretty new to it and new to that Card from Brindlewood experience where the endings are not defined.
Yeah.
Right. And then quickly their narrative sort of took hold. We did a lot of work beforehand to sort of establish why are they in Brindlewood Bay? What do they care about? What secrets do they have? And then I got to do the really fun, delicious work of then tying all of that as we go into this grander narrative. So they all have a huge stake in how this thing ends. And we spend a lot of time. We have a couple specials, which aren't even mysteries at all, but we're just exploring town and learning more about, you know, why they're widowed and, or, you know, one of them has a child that they are not connected to, that they're trying to learn more about, and these themes that they're looking to explore. So their characters grow as a result, and now we're all obviously quite attached. And here at the end, we've got maybe 3 episodes left to record.
How are you guys taking it?
Yeah. You know, it's simultaneously ending too soon, right? We want to play more, and Brindlewood Bay can allow you to do that. You can always play after the big thing. But we also are excited for things on the horizon. So part of storytelling is knowing when the story ends.
Yeah, ends. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And we're getting there. The system has a framework for scaling from that cozy, like nonchalant beginning to that epic finale. Yeah. And we're getting there. So we're all excited and we're grieving. It's very bittersweet.
Yeah. Are you guys gonna cry?
Oh, probably. I would imagine so. We've already cried in other episodes, so what's going to stop us now, you know?
On the final one? Oh, that is going to be bittersweet.
Yeah.
Because it's the end of like an era, kind of. Because this went on for a long time.
Yeah, it was it's my first project with LFM, and we've been playing for a long time together on our Thursday nights and talking and connecting, and we're excited for the ending. But obviously, it is bittersweet, and to take these characters who are, you know, so different from every other character we've played. You know, when you're playing in the geriatric space and as an elderly character, you're exploring so much more about age and society and how society treats that sort of section, and getting to be in their stories for so long has been so wonderful. So we're sad to see it go, but we're excited for having a good, satisfying ending with it.
Yeah. What do you guys? Can we get a sneak peek of what you guys want to do next?
We are looking at still exploring sort of age and coming into yourself, but in a vastly different way. So whereas Brindlewood Bay was, you know, murder, she wrote, and elderly women and conspiracy, what we're looking to go next is sort of gonzo, high octane silliness, but still coming of age, still learning who we are inside and exploring those things. So that's a narrative we all really enjoy. What that means system-wise, we've got a pretty good idea, but I might keep that under wraps just so we can tease it a little more. You can expect multi-dimensional silliness. Okay. You can expect some crazy tricks and antics. Of course. Just a tone, hopefully, that feels quite the opposite of like this sleepy murder experience that we've had so far. But not too much the opposite, because I know my players, and we're probably going to bring the heartache regardless. That's
it's coming. It's coming either way. So for anybody who doesn't know about this campaign, can you explain it? Like, who are the ladies? What do they? You know, can you like summarize it real quick?
Sure. We've got 3 mavens. They're a part of a book club. They read murder mystery books together in their sleepy town, Brindlewood Bay, which is sort of this coastal town. It's very Boston, Massachusetts area, East Coast, seaside town. Yeah. If you've watched Murder, She Wrote, it is absolutely just Cabot Cove. That's what it's based off of.
Yeah.
But our mavens, Taya, who's played by Angeli, Taya is sort of a rough and rumble, has been on the move most of her life, and is now sort of grounded back in her hometown and experiencing what it's like not to run for the first time in the face of things that are stressful and things that are hard, and trying to dig in and stay and be connected for the people that she cares about. We've got Marina, who's played by Vasni, and Marina has lived a large and beautiful life and recently widowed, and trying to explore what connection looks like after a major chapter ends. Like, you're no longer a wife, no longer, you know, your kids are grown up. What does that mean for life now? And being connected to this group and to this community and caring in the midst of sort of processing that grief still, and having a supernatural connection that tends to throw that grief back into her face whenever I, as the GM, think it might be fun to experience. Thematically, relevant. And then our last Maven is Violet, played by Megan, or Wandering Imagination. Avid birder, has a lovely husband and is here in town, but has a really sad past and is trying to rectify with choices she made as a child, even. And come to terms with that and work on them now. So all three of these Mavens are really grappling with, what does life look like now because of the things I did before? And in the midst of all of this, they keep getting thrown into places where people are dying, and uncovering these plot points and these threads where there are people they care about, who they thought were friends and who think maybe they are friends, who are actively working against them and trying to bring about this sort of supernatural cosmic entity for their own purposes. And so our Mavens are exploring their own personal stories of grief and loss and hope. At the same time, they're trying to protect Brindlewood Bay from a catastrophic level of
utter destruction.
And becoming more and more aware of, there is something behind the scenes here. There is another reality risking encroachment on our own. And so they're well entrenched now. We are about to run our last mystery, the Void mystery, which is the end of a campaign. But they all have to grapple with these sort of big decisions along the way about who they really are, what they really care for, and what they will risk to continue to protect those things.
Yeah. So this group sounds perfect for our channel. Like, this is what we all love, these kind of deep stories, and we love trauma. We love exploring some good old trauma. But it sounds like you guys are coming to a very satisfying end, and it sounds like you give them the chance to explore the character aside from just like mystery, cosmic horror. Like you explained before, like you have those like anime beach episodes where it's like we're not necessarily focusing on the mystery, but like the characters and just fleshing them out some more. It sounds like you guys take some time for that.
Yes, and I think in any campaign that time is important, whether it's 5e or any system, giving your players a chance to deeply explore their characters makes them better role players, more engaging players, and it is more you then learn as the GM more of what they care about in this moment, not just what they wrote on some survey a couple months ago when you were planning, but what story beats are they the most interested in. And so we have a good time with all of that and exploring the town and these people they care about and these people who are betraying them and all sorts of things.
Love that. Okay, so that is Brindlewood Bay. That's the campaign, you guys. It's been over a year. They're having fun. I think everybody should go watch it. It's a very interesting concept. So we're going to transition over to Mom's house rules. Every house has its own rules, and TTRPG tables are no different. So, Syd, I want you share your if you would like share your personal like house rules for playing or running games. Is there anything that you're like, I always have like these things or this list that no matter what, we're always following? Some type of house rule. We're not necessarily like lines and veils or thing like that. That's kind of like a given. Communicating about boundaries, but like, hey, I've come up with this house rule. It's kind of it's a little bit specific or anything like that really helps you out.
Yeah, I was about to launch into my whole safety spiel. So safety always. That's
of course
safety spiel for sure. Yeah. But outside of those things, my two sort of main ones are, we're always people before we're players. And so I want to be connected to my players, my people, and know how it's going, and have them feel like it's sort of, this is sort of tied to safety, but know what's going on, and have that safe space outside of that. And I think that fosters our player community as well. But we are also all supporting one another in storytelling. So sort of a philosophical, above table rule, we're fans of the story we're telling. Yeah. And that means all of the characters in it, whether they're making a flawed decision or a bad decision,
exactly.
It's part of the story. We celebrate failure is interesting at every table.
100%. It
should be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't want my players to be afraid of failing something. Obviously, like in 5e, a death saving throw could be a place to be afraid of failing that throw, right, but we'll still make it interesting, whether that's a devil's bargain or, a rescue quest or whatever. But outside of that, because I run so many systems, so many different systems, my house table rules are typically more along the lines of, if I'm going to look up something that I don't know, I might pause and go to the text and figure it out. And I'll make a ruling. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier. If you disagreed with that, please let me know. We'll talk about it, But I'm going to make a ruling for us to continue forward. I don't want this to stall the game. I think that is a responsibility of the GM in that case. And then additionally, you don't have to be a fan of every choice a player makes, but we are all telling the story together. Myself, you all, I'm going to give you chances to impact the narrative, to impact the world building, to have that autonomy. And my players can expect that from me. I am going to ask, well, what do you think that looks like? Or you guys are here late. Why? You tell me what made you late, right?
Yeah.
But when I think about things like crits, there's so many different systems and how that might work. I tend to gravitate towards, if you rolled a critical failure, you're not succeeding. And if you rolled a critical success, you're going to have the best possible outcome of that situation. But I won't ask someone to roll for something that's impossible. If you try to roll for something that is so far outside the bounds of what would actually be fictionally, narratively possible in that moment, I'm going to be forthcoming and say so, because I don't want them to feel like they rolled for nothing if I'm just going to shoot it down right away. I also do public facing rolls. I think that's really fun for my players. I want them to see, and you
never hit a roll before?
Huh?
You never hit a roll before?
Oh, early on I did, I think, especially when I was learning. But now if I'm running something where I actually get to roll, in many of my systems I don't. But in systems that I do, I do them public facing, because my players seem to appreciate that and see what's going to happen. It makes things feel a bit more exciting. And if at that point I'm like, yikes, that was a crit, and then you're gonna go down, we might then narratively come up with something cool to explain a bit why or whatnot. But I don't like to hide my roles from my players because it's exciting for all of us. But I also use, I primarily DM online. So I'm using bots and I'm using things like that to make it visible for my players in that case.
Yeah. Speaking of online, do you have any tips or advice for what's the best way to elevate an online gaming experience that you found?
If you're not using music, that's the first thing you can do.
Can you imagine a quiet game with nothing?
I used to not use music, but now I've got a really level bot in my Discord. I can put a Spotify link into or YouTube link, get music going. If I'm running something very simple where I'm not using an online VTT like Alchemy or Foundry or Roll20 that could have some of that integration, just grabbing a link and playing it. Players can decide whether or not they want to hear music, but I think it is the first thing you can do to elevate an online game experience is ambience. Just bring in something there.
It's the bare minimum, to be honest. Really
that get your visuals, even if don't think you need a picture of what this place looks like because you can explain it. You might have players like me who have auditory processing, and they can grasp it a lot quicker if you also provide a photo. Or they look sort of like this, or you go make that person up on a pick crew so you have a little image of what they might look like. If you can provide those resources to your players, it emulates what you would be doing at the table.
Yeah.
Physically. So those are the immediate, if you're not doing those, get on them. It's going to make the game experience better, just by servicing your players a bit more.
What would you say about having webcams on?
Ooh, I am a fan of having webcams on, but I also know that's not a reality every player can meet. Either they don't have the technology or the space, or the comfortability. So I tend to be very explicit in my game postings, especially when I'm running free stuff where I'm learning a system and I'm inviting players in to learn it with me, that whether or not I'm requiring cams on. And I typically share the reason why, because I want that feedback. It's easier for me to DM if I can see the players and see their responses, see if they're checked out, see if they're really engaged and pivot. But I can't see that if your camera is off. But I also know, I want to turn my camera off sometimes. If I have a massive migraine, if I can just listen and talk and not look at a screen, that could be really helpful. So I tend to say cameras preferred but not required unless there's a very specific reason, like I'm recording this practice, or we're doing a paid game where there's just a different level of experience, and we're very connected with one another. But if a player has a really good reason and they're writing in my game as to why their camera should be off, that's a part of people before players. I'm gonna allow, yes, go ahead, turn your camera off. If I'm this close to the screen because I'm Googling 5e rules right now, and I don't want someone to see that and just the camera's going off real quick while I'm doing all this mental math, right? That close. But I think there was cameras.
Same. I think there was a thing. There's a term like camera fatigue or something, because especially during COVID. A lot of us were like, okay, so now we're working from home. We take our meetings, cameras on all day at work. And then you're like, I'm kind of don't want to show my face now anymore. Just so I get that part.
Ordeal of being seen, right? It can be really tough, especially, if you're on camera all the time, or you're just, your water's been off because they hit a water main break and you don't look good and you don't want to be on camera. I get it, for sure. So I give my reasoning, but I very rarely require it unless there's a specific reason to require it.
Yes, but I totally agree. I love the visual cues. I just want to see how perceptive are they of this bomb that I just dropped on them. And I like to see the shock on their faces as I destroy my players. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so that is a good rule. I think, do you have any other kind of system agnostic rule? You're like, I take this into every game no matter what. So you're people before players. I love that.
I stole this from Brindlewood Bay and I put it in all of my games now. And it's a concept called paint the scene. Okay. Where whenever they get to a new location, I'm inviting my players to establish canon with me right now after I give them a little description to answer a question about that location. So usually this might be something like, what odd decorations do the Vidals have at their house? And that tells you they're not a part of the rest of this rich upper crust elite. Something leading like that, where they then get to be they have blow up Christmas decorations and they live in this really fancy neighborhood, or they've got an entire wall full of antlers, but they're of animals you've never seen. And my players are then establishing that canon. They're feeling connected. And I take that into every other game. I take it into when I run Lier Watch, Perils and Princesses, any sort of place where I can hand over the reins and be like, you tell me about this place. What do you see? What do you want to be real here right now? And I find it's so fun, and we get so many little jokes or things that become really plot relevant later on within the session. And then another one is opening vignettes, which I'm sure exists everywhere, but I eat them up. Yes, tell me how you prepared for this moment before we get cut to the action. Right, give me a little snapshot of your player or your character doing something they enjoy, and then we move on. But those moments, I think, can help new players a lot too. Sort of have a small scale, less risky way of getting established. Oh yeah, my character is doing this, this, and this. I'm like, great, wonderful. And then we sort of just move on very quickly, but it's a moment for them. It's like a pregame to the role play, right? It's exactly. To that initial imagination step. So I take those into every system I run and try to incorporate them in when I write stuff as well.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so you guys, I hope you guys got a really good idea of Syd's GM style. If you want to play with her, she's going to ask you to be a part of the collaborative process of it all, and that sounds really fun. Just to be able to add your stamp into the world, and just be like, yeah, now there's a birdhouse there now, or just play something in the world, And it sounds like you kind of run with it. You'd be like, yeah, cool, it's there now.
It's there now, yeah, absolutely. And it looks like there's this other thing with it too, and we'll sort of riff back and forth. So anding. It's a very easy way to get into the improv.
That is improv, you guys. But now, I don't know if you guys hear, that was a dinner bell. This is we're at the outro, you guys. This is the dinner bell for our Mom's Open Table interview. But this is where we're going to do our outros here. Before we wrap up, Syd, do you have any current or upcoming games, projects, anything else you'd like to share that you're currently doing, or that you want us to get excited for?
Absolutely. One, get excited for the end of Brindlewood Bay. As we're recording it, get excited, get sad with us.
Yes, they're going to cry, you guys.
Catch up on their narratives. We'd be happy to have you there at the end. That is the number one most exciting thing going on. Outside of that, if you are ever wanting to play Brindlewood Bay, or maybe try your hand at really rules light, one-page TTRPGs, or maybe you're trying something like Slugblaster. I am a writer. I've written a lot of third-party content over on my itch.io page.
Yes, check out her itch.
Check it out.
Yes.
Especially if you're, like me, interested in exploring playing older characters. So I've got one about nursing homes. I've just put out a Slugblaster dimension about interdimensional ex-con facility full of elderly people. Nice. So there's plenty of things there, whether it's Brindlewood Bay or other systems that I've really enjoyed and took a stab at trying to write. Please go check it out. I really appreciate it. And there's some stuff coming up on the horizon. Can't talk about it yet. Some third-party stuff that I am hoping to finish playtesting and then lay out and get out there for you. So lots of writing projects right now in this actual play, and then seeing what my players and I dip our toes into next in terms of system and whatnot. And finally, I'll shout out Sprigs Kindling, which is a fanzine through the Card from Brindlewood community. They have an April issue coming out that's all about romance, love, and obsession. And there's stuff in there for all of the Gauntlet games. So not only just Brindlewood Bay, but the Dark Victorian, the Between, Public Access, the Silt Verses, all of the stuff in their sort of repertoire that's all fan-made and written and laid out. And there's some really, really wonderful stuff that it's completely free. So I checked that out.
We'll link it in the description as well. Everything that you've kind of mentioned, we'll put it in the description. Yeah.
For sure. I think the last thing coming up is that I've submitted some writing projects that you can get at a very low price for the TTRPGs for, I think it's for trans rights for Ohio. There's going to be an itch bundle that comes out on Trans Remembrance Day on March 31st. So that link will go out too. There's hundreds of stuff in there. It's so it's over 1,000 items, and it's probably $5. I think the last time I looked to get all of those things. So it's the whole community coming together. And I'm honored to be a part of it.
That sounds like it's for a great cause. It's a humble bundle, right?
It'll be through itch.io.
Something similar.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. Usually those bundle type deals, you get so much.
So much. You're going to get entire systems, entire games, supplemental material, all stuff that the creators are giving for free. So that way, when you purchase it for, your $5 or $10 and you're getting 1,000 items, all of that money, 100% of it goes to the charities listed in the description. So I'd go check it out.
Awesome. I definitely want that link from you because I want to and just be super helpful.
Will do.
But yes, so I just want to thank everybody. Thanks for tuning in to our first episode of Mom's Open Table. Woo!
We did it.
Yes. So this is a new format for us, and we're excited to see where it goes. Who's going to be on next? Jason Cordova, listen, shout out again.
Please, we love you.
we love you. Until next time, remember, no fighting at the table unless it's in character.
There you go.
Bye.